Good morning. I am starting this video once again in the parking garage to get my gloves on. I'm hoping that our glove drive at work will produce enough gloves for the people who were unsheltered downtown because they really need them. Every time I put my gloves on, and I know I have a hat and gloves and warm clothes, I think about them because I know that they're in the elements and a lot of them don't have these things. So we're having a glove drive at work, and I'm really hoping that we can come up with enough to help some of the people here downtown. But before we get started, please like and subscribe. Please share my channel. And give me one moment. This is a part where I need to watch traffic. But please comment whether you agree with me or not. I do love having you here. I love sharing with you. I love hearing your opinions. And if you're new on this channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. And so with that, let's just get started on today's subject. Today, what I want to talk about is something that it could be viewed as controversial, or it could be viewed as something that people have very different opinions on. But as always, when I post my opinion on this channel, it's food for thought. It's all there for everybody to discuss. That's why I ask for comments. You don't have to agree with me, but I do really want to share some things just to get them out there and, maybe see how you feel about it. Here I have to run over this pothole. So this pothole is really, really big. I don't know if you noticed in my one video. You can't avoid it when there's ice on the road, so I had to hit it. But today I want to talk about a subject that, there are people out there who say things like, and this is going to, I'm just going to straight up tell you that this is about transgender people and the fact that there are a lot of Christians out there who feel that they should not be given the right to medical care, or they should not be given the validation of, when a transgender person says, I don't feel inside the same sex as I was born on the outside, my biology and my psychology are not fitting together here. There are Christians out there and other people who believe that we should just not validate that. That people should just write them off as either mentally ill or crazy or wrong, or in some way, just basically deny their point of view and deny them the right to determine who they know they are. In my opinion, and this is my very strong opinion, I feel that is absolutely wrong to do to somebody. If someone knows who they are on the inside in their heart, what their biological shell, body, housing, avatar, whatever you want to call it, looks like and comes out biologically being, is not the true essence of who they really are. And there are Christians who will argue with me, well, people are born man or woman. It says in Genesis, we're born man or woman. It also says in the Bible there were Enochs. It also says in the Bible that there were people who had both sexes, either both or neither. Those people exist in the Bible too, but nobody ever shines the spotlight on them. They only shine the spotlight on Genesis, where it first said that we're born man or woman. And, in Genesis, the earth needed to be populated. If you have two people in the very beginning, first you have a man, and then the woman was created from his rib, and now you have a man and a woman. How are you going to populate the earth? Because it is genetically designed that a man and a woman, or a male and a female, would produce. And that's what it said in Genesis. Yes, I agree with that. However, There are a lot of different things that have taken place since Genesis. There are a lot of things that have happened since Genesis. There are a lot of things. In the beginning, the world wasn't populated. We had 2 people. Now we have like 9 billion people. I'm not so sure that it's as important that we pair up man and woman to procreate and continue to populate. I mean, we have that option, but if Adam and Eve wouldn't have been able to do that, there would be no humans, because they would have died out and they wouldn't have had any kids, and that would have been the end of that. You also have to think about Genesis, or you don't have to, but I think about Genesis, and I think, okay, so you had Adam and Eve, and then they started having children, and then the population started growing. Well, what just happened there? Did they have a boy and a girl, and then their daughter and their son had a baby? How else would we have multiplied? If sisters and brothers hadn't procreated in the beginning, and if first cousins hadn't procreated in the beginning, how did we grow to 9 billion people? Or 6 billion, or whatever. I lose track of how many people are on the earth, but how did we grow? How did the population grow if there wasn't some form of incest in the beginning? But does God say in the beginning there will be incest, but then we're gonna make that a law that, we don't want incest later on in life? We just want it in the beginning. We want to make sure that brothers and sisters are allowed to have babies and get married, and that's fine in the beginning because we need to procreate, but then later on in life, not so good. We'll eliminate that. So, if the beginning was man and woman, and they were to have babies, and in the beginning, incest also existed so that they could have babies, do we do the same exact thing these days? Does today look exactly like it did then? It doesn't. Things have changed, and a lot of people will say, well, God hasn't changed. No, God hasn't changed, but God is what's in our heart. God is who we are. God is the I am. Whenever Moses asked God his name, he said, I am that I am. God is a thought. God is a consciousness. God has always been and has always been there. That's God. So God hasn't changed. God will never change. God is in us. God is in our hearts. We are branches of the vine. We're branches of the tree. The tree, God is the trunk of the tree, the solid rock that we stand on, and we are his children, his heirs. God hasn't changed, but the game board has. And Christians don't see this as a game board. Christians don't see this as an experience, because Christians don't look at the Hindu view of what we are and what consciousness is. Jesus does, though. Jesus' teachings really resemble a lot of the things that the Hindu teachings have to say. So it kind of gets to a point where you're either going to believe nothing but the Old Testament, or you're going to also understand that when Jesus came, he came to show us that there's a different way to look at things than the Old Testament. That yes, the Old Testament was necessary. All those things were necessary. They existed for a reason. But were we supposed to carry them on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever? Amen. I just saw 11:11. Was the Old Testament designed for us to keep it forever and never stray from it? If that had been the case, Jesus would have never come to tell us that we need to see things from spiritual eyes, in a spiritual view. So when you have transgender people what's really happening, and I did some research on this, what's really happening is they're biologically designed a certain way. Their chromosomes and their, whenever they're, as Christians say, and as the Bible says, knit together in the womb. God knew them. Yes, he did. He sure did. He knew everything about them. He knew who they would be, what their heart would be like, what they would be born into, what they would have to endure in life, what they would have to overcome. He knew them, the inside, the spiritual, the supernatural, them. And he also knew everything about what they would go through on this game board. So yes, true. God knew them from the beginning. They were born. They were born a man and a woman in the beginning, and some people are born now that we're in a different time frame. You have people born with conjoined heads. You have some people born with no arms or legs. You have some people born with a hole in their heart. You have people born with part of a brain. We have people born who are autistic. We have people born who have Down syndrome. And some people say, oh, well, that's because of sin. Sin is being separate from God, but the people themselves aren't sinning, and their parents weren't necessarily sinning to have them be born that way. But this game board is filled with things that aren't of God. We're put here in bodies. None of our avatars, none of our human bodies are perfect. None of them. I mean, if God doesn't make mistakes, I wouldn't have 147 cowlicks all over my head, and I wouldn't be short, and I would have had a perfect body, and I would look perfectly symmetrical, and I wouldn't wear glasses. If God had created a perfect person in me, why am I wearing glasses? That's a flaw. So for people to look at transgender and say, you're flawed, and there's some kind of a flaw, but it can't be God, because there is no such thing as a flaw. God doesn't create flaws. So you're just wrong about yourself. That is probably one of the meanest things you can possibly say to another human being, that I know who you are and you don't know who you are, and God doesn't make mistakes, so you're not really who you think you are. Why would people do that? If somebody feels on the inside, it has to do with a lot of different things. Hormones, it has to do with chromosomes, hormones, chemicals, chemistry, biology. There are a lot of different factors that go into a person being born with in a certain sex and a certain body, but inside they feel like they're the opposite. It is a thing. It is a thing. And it is valid. And it should have been written in the medical books as a medical diagnosis that needed to be treated medically, which is what they were trying to do, is treat it medically. But you had people that just had a complete fit over the audacity of a woman wanting to become a man, or a man wanting to become a woman, because God forbid they would want to use a different bathroom, and that just offends people. So the offense police came out and decided that these people are just not valid human beings. They're sick. They called them sick. You're sick, 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 because God doesn't make mistakes. Well, I have news for you. No, God doesn't make mistakes, but this game board is filled with mistakes. This game board is filled with flaws, and it's filled with flaws for a reason. It's filled with flaws to test our hearts. And I said this, I think, in my last video, and I think I said it in probably most of the videos that I post. This game board that we're playing on, which I call the experience, this experience that God created and our thoughts co-create, this experience is here to test our hearts. And the Bible even says our hearts are tested here. Jesus says that. So if you're going to believe Jesus, it's time to be kind to everyone. There are people who have disabilities, there are people who have sicknesses, there are people who wear glasses, there are people who are autistic, and it's time to be kind to everyone who has flaws. Because flaws aren't bad, flaws are a test. They're a test to see how are we going to respond. Are we going to respond with hatred, or are we going to respond with compassion and love? And the correct answer, if you want to be on the right side of Jesus, is that we respond to everyone in love. And we don't point out their flaws. We give them comfort and support as they work their way through this experience. We hold their hands as they're working their way through this experience. This experience is harder on some people than it is on others. And for those who aren't having as hard a time, they can reach out to the ones who are having a hard time. Jesus demonstrated that. Jesus went looking for the people who were carrying, their mats around her, or who couldn't walk, and he would tell them to get up, pick up your mat, and walk. He looked for the people that were lame. He looked for the people who were blind, and he healed them. And we have the ability to heal. So are we criticizing people who need to be healed, or are we helping to heal them? And, again, it's just which side of Jesus are we on? So that's all I had to talk about this morning. I'm here at work. It's time to go in. So thanks for being here again. I do appreciate you. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next time.